So there was this situation where I was asked by a Catholic to prove that Peter was not the rock in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, on which the church was built. So my task was to look at the context, to look at the Greek words and see whether or not there's any indication that Peter could be the rock on which the church is built. And so I took action. I went and I read Matthew chapter 16 leading up to the passage which is under consideration, which is Matthew chapter 16, verse 18. And I saw the discussion that Jesus was having with his disciples concerning his identity. And Catholics bring up this point that Peter in the Greek is Petros, and the rock on which the church was built is the Greek word Petra. So they say there's a correlation being used between Peter and the rock, indicating that Peter is the rock. And when you read the context, the rock is not Peter himself. The rock is the identity of the Messiah as the Son of God and the confession of it. And so Peter is having this discussion with Jesus, and Jesus says, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And so they listed off what some of the other individuals were saying. And he said, "But who do you say that I am?" And Peter is the first one to respond and says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Now, he's not the only one who believed that. He's just the first to have responded to the question. And Jesus wasn't telling Peter that he's the rock, saying, "You are Peter, and upon you, Peter, I will build the church," because he doesn't use that terminology in the Greek. What he says is, "You are Peter, and upon this rock, I will build my church." He's not talking about Peter. He's not saying Peter twice as in, "I tell you, you are Peter, and upon this Peter, I will build my church." That doesn't even make sense either. And so what we have is Jesus establishing the building of his church upon his own identity. And so if an individual wants to be added to the church, that is what they must confess. Just like Acts chapter 8, we know that according to Acts chapter 2, an individual was added to the church when they are baptized. But we have Philip and a eunuch in Acts chapter 8, and he says, "Here's water. What's stopping me from being baptized?" He wants to be added to the church. He said, "If you believe with all your heart, you may." Then he tells us what he believes. And he says, "I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God." There's the confession. There's the rock which Jesus said he would build his church upon. So Jesus wants all individuals who are outside of his one body in the one body. And so we are called to share the message about Jesus being the Son of God. But you have Catholics obsessed with this idea of Peter being the rock. And so through my action of studying, I have come to the conclusion that Peter is not the rock. Peter just made a confession, and the confession and the identity of Jesus is the rock, that Jesus is the Son of God. And so now the result is, I know how to answer that argument, and now you do too.